Welcome to the Client Management Business Solutions from Envision IT. This solution is built on FileMaker Pro. FileMaker Pro is a cross-platform relational database application from FileMaker Inc. But before we take a look at the solution in itself, let's take a look at the platform that is built on, and that is FileMaker. So we will take a look at FileMaker's history to get a better view where we are coming from, how long FileMaker have existed, and why it is so powerful. Then we will take a look at the version history of FileMaker and where the big changes happened. Then we will take a look at the platforms FileMaker was meant to run on, the operation systems that is out there. And then we'll go in and look at the FileMaker platform itself, the packages that they are offering us and what we can use these packages for. Then we will very quickly go in and look at the operation systems, which operation systems are best to run what versions of FileMaker. And then we'll look at the peer-to-peer solution that FileMaker is offering, and there is 3 of them. And then we'll go in and take a very quick look at the Launch Center, and then we'll end up with a short video that will explain us how we can share this solution, like the Client Management Business Solution, on a FileMaker platform, how we can share that, and how we're setting that up. So with no further delay, let's go in and take a look at the general history of FileMaker. When it comes to FileMaker, as I said in the beginning of my introduction video, FileMaker is a cross-platform relationship database. What does that mean? That means that FileMaker can run on a Windows and a Mac, and it can even run on a Linux and an Android. It doesn't have a client or a server for these 2 platforms, the Linux and the Android, but you can run it through your browsers. So that is why we call it a cross-platform relationship database. Also, it has to be said that it is an integrated database engine with a graphic user interface where the security features make it possible for the end user to go in and drag something and drop it. That means that if you have like a text file, something from a Word document, or let's say that you're browsing and there is some text, you can highlight it, you grab it, and you go in and drop it in dedicated fields that is placed on the layout, screens, or forms. You could also pick like a PDF file from your desktop and just drag it in to FileMaker and drop it in a dedicated field that is meant for that, because fields can be defined to the security what kind of file types it can absorb when you drag and drop. Then also, when we look at 2016 here, the current versions, because when I say versions is that you have a version Pro and a Pro Advanced, and then you have a server. And then you have for iPad and iPhones called Go, but that is version 15. When it comes to how far does FileMaker really go back, FileMaker go back some decades now, because FileMaker was really developed for DOS applications and Mac that time, and that was in 1985, so you can see there's 3 decades really. And then in 1992 FileMaker adopted so that Microsoft Windows also was included in the cross-platform, so it could run on a DOS application, on a Mac and Windows. Where there really happened some big upgrades was when FileMaker went into FileMaker 7. It has to be said, before that it briefly ran as a server package on a Linux, but then they dropped it or abandoned it, and then they simply said, yeah, but the server package can only run on a Windows or a Mac machine. In 2010, because after some customers had mentioned that there were only 3 or 4 people in the company who had to have access to FileMaker, that it was too expensive to go out and buy a server. So FileMaker went in and made it possible for a client version, a desktop-based version, to also host a solution like a server. And they did that in 2010, where we have what we call FileMaker Pro. That's just a client, but when you say FileMaker Pro Advanced, that means that it can also work as a server. up to 5 users, yourself and 4 others. And that's also when they started playing around in 2010 with the web delivery configurations and so on, so you can go through browsers. So that was a little bit of history for the FileMaker. So let's go in and look at history in regards to the versions of FileMaker. When it comes to the version history of FileMaker, that's also very important, and the reason we have to take a look at it, because we could add it to the history of FileMaker, and we went through very quickly what dates, what years there was big, huge advancement in FileMaker. But what is important is that if you come across older solutions that is created in older versions of FileMaker, these has to be converted if you are on newer versions of FileMaker applications. What do I mean with that? It is so that in beginning of 2000 we had one file structure. It worked from 1 up to 6. FileMaker 6 down to FileMaker 1 could handle this file structure. But if you went out and purchased that time a FileMaker 7, you had to convert that file structure to the whole new file structure that was created in 2008 in FileMaker 7. The same happened again if you are on a FileMaker 11, for instance. If you are a FileMaker 11, 12, 13, 14, and the current version is 15, that means if you have an older solution from 2000 up to 2007, then it first has to be converted with FileMaker 7, 8, 9, and 10. They have to convert that FileMaker version first to the FileMaker 7 version. And then you can grab it with FileMaker 11 version, 12, 13, 14, and now current 15, and convert it again. So it has to go through 2 conversions. So if the file structure and the solution is not made in a current version, then of course it can be converted, but you have to be aware that certain features or certain structures can be left behind when converted. The reason I bring it up is that the best scenario is that if you have FileMaker installed on your machine, if you have FileMaker 11, then it works together with 12, 13, 14, 15. If you have a FileMaker 7 and you have a FileMaker 11, these two couldn't work together, because if you convert FileMaker from 7 to 11, then 7 has to be left behind. 7 cannot go forward, it can only go backward. Then you have to upgrade the application packages and the server packages if you have older versions of that, if you want to work in a newer file structure, FileMaker 11. And that's why we bring it up here. So the best, of course, would be to be on the current version, the FileMaker 15, but 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 are compatible with each other. All before 11, then you have 7, 8, 9, and 10. They are compatible with each other. And before then, you have from 1 up to 6. Just keep that in mind. So let's go in and take a look at the OS platform that FileMaker was meant to run on. When it comes to the OS platforms, and for the people out there who doesn't know it, OS stands for Operation System Platforms like Windows, Mac, Linux, even Android. So the reason why it's important that we go through this is that where can we run FileMaker apps from, and where can we access data from these solutions? From where can we do that? When we're talking about apps like the FileMaker Pro, FileMaker Advanced, and the server, they run on Windows and on Mac. When it comes to mobile devices, the iPad and the iPhone has a client by itself called FileMaker Go. These can approach data that is running on a Windows platform or a Mac platform, but they can also host their own solution, but they cannot share it. If you host it on a Windows or Mac platform, you can share it with others. But when you are on an iPad or an iPhone, it works like a client where you host a solution of your own, or you can approach a solution that is hosted on a Windows or Mac platform. FileMaker also developed something called WebDirect. And what does WebDirect mean is that you can approach data. You can't host it and you don't have a client. You can do that from either Windows and Mac that we just went through, because if you don't have a client program like FileMaker Pro and FileMaker Advanced, you can do it through a browser, even on a Windows and a Mac machine. But then you can use that same environment on a Linux and an Android, where any device that has a browser, even an iPhone and iPad, if you have a browser, you are able to access through WebDirect a solution that is run on a FileMaker platform. So you have a full cross platform environment where it really doesn't matter what operation system you're on, you can approach data that is hosted either on a Windows or a Mac environment. You can approach that from anywhere. And what is unique by doing it through a browser is that you don't have to install anything, because as soon as you have the browser, you are able to approach FileMaker via WebDirect and view and even modify, add data, and so on. There are certain features that is not present because it's a browser, but many solutions and the way that companies prefer to access these solutions and the data is sufficient. So just keep that in mind. But like I said, the main environment that is created for is Windows, Mac, and because it's a Mac environment, then it's iPad and iPhone, but WebDirect makes it possible to run it on any platform via a browser. Just keep that in mind. So let's go in and take a look at the next issue, and that is the FileMaker Platform in itself. Okay, let's go in and take a look at the FileMaker Platform. The FileMaker Platform is one of the most powerful software packages out there, where you can create customer apps that work seamlessly across iPad, iPhone, Windows, Mac, and the web. Yes, it even works on Linux and Android. It has to be said that it's not just the software packages, it is also the features that comes with these software packages and services. The FileMaker Platform consists of the FileMaker Pro, the FileMaker Pro Advanced, the FileMaker Go, the FileMaker WebDirect, that is a feature, then the FileMaker Server, and the FileMaker Cloud, that is a service. Let's go in and take a look closer in regards to the FileMaker Platform.
First off, you have FileMaker Pro and FileMaker Pro Advanced on Mac and Windows. FileMaker Pro is the absolute cornerstone of the FileMaker product line. This allows you complete client access or user access to your databases. It also is the development environment where you're going to develop your solution. Now, the difference between FileMaker Pro and FileMaker Pro Advanced is that Advanced has a handful of developer-specific features. For example, you can import themes, you can manage custom functions, you can also access the script debugger, which is super useful if you're writing scripts, and also the data viewer. There's a handful of other items in there, but FileMaker Pro Advanced is super useful if you're doing a lot of FileMaker development. Then there's FileMaker Server. FileMaker Server is what's going to host your FileMaker database on your local area network and also on the internet. If your FileMaker Server has a static IP address and also your network router allows internet access to your FileMaker Server, that server can host databases out on the internet to remote users. Those remote users can be using FileMaker Pro or FileMaker Pro Advanced. Now, there's another client those users can be using, and that's FileMaker Go. FileMaker Go is a software that's specific for the iPhone and iPad. This software is not available for the Android platform. Now, FileMaker Go is completely free to download off Apple's App Store, and you can freely use local databases that are loaded locally into the flash memory of your mobile device. However, if you want to connect to a FileMaker server, you're going to need to make sure that that FileMaker server has a concurrent connection license installed on that server. And this requires a bit of explanation. Starting with FileMaker 13, in order for FileMaker Go users to access a FileMaker server, that server has to have a concurrent connection license installed on it. And the reason for this is that FileMaker Go is free, and so FileMaker had to monetize in some way the product. And the way they do this is for users who want remote internet access to their databases. The cost is very reasonable. By purchasing a concurrent license and inputting that license key on your FileMaker server, FileMaker Go users can access databases on your FileMaker server just like FileMaker Pro users do. Now, FileMaker Pro users don't need to have that concurrent license installed on FileMaker server. FileMaker Pro users have already paid for the client software. Therefore, they get access to FileMaker Server without any additional fees. So far we've discussed FileMaker Pro and Pro Advanced on Mac and Windows, FileMaker Go on iOS for iPhone and iPad, and there's a third client that's available, which is brand new to the platform, called FileMaker WebDirect. WebDirect is a browser-based client that was first introduced with the FileMaker 13 platform. Now you access WebDirect by using a modern browser like Internet Explorer, Google Chrome, or Apple Safari. Most functions and capabilities that are part of the FileMaker platform work on WebDirect. But WebDirect is not as powerful nor as quick as FileMaker Pro is. For this reason, WebDirect is not a replacement for FileMaker Pro. In fact, just because it's a browser doesn't mean that WebDirect is free. If you want to use a browser to access WebDirect, a free client, you're going to need to make sure that that FileMaker server has a concurrent connection license installed on it, just like it did for FileMaker Go. In fact, the concurrent connection license that you install works simultaneously for FileMaker Go clients and WebDirect clients. FileMaker Go clients are free, and the WebDirect clients, because it's a browser, are free as well. But to access FileMaker Server, both of these clients must have a concurrent connection license installed on the server they intend to access. So in summary, if you've purchased your FileMaker client, like FileMaker Pro or Pro Advanced, you do not have to pay any additional fees to connect to FileMaker Server. However, if your client was free, like a web browser for WebDirect, or you download FileMaker Go for free from Apple's App Store, you will need to make sure a connection license has been purchased and installed on the FileMaker server that you're going to be working with. So now that we understand that we have 3 separate FileMaker clients that we can use to access a database, how do we choose the right one for our organization? Well, all the development must be done in FileMaker Pro. You can choose to do the development in FileMaker Pro or Pro Advanced, depending upon the complexity of the development you need to do. There is no development at all in FileMaker Go or in WebDirect. FileMaker Go and WebDirect are only for accessing and using the database. FileMaker Pro is by far the fastest and richest and highest speed client to access the database. So for maximum performance and greatest flexibility, FileMaker Pro is your best option. Your best mobile option is going to be FileMaker Go on your iPhone and iPad. If you don't have a lot of data to access, then the iPhone might be a good option, or maybe an iPad mini. But if you have a screen with lots of information on it, you're going to want to think about using a full-size iPad with a larger screen real estate for your mobile device. For limited deployments within your own organization or with limited deployments to trusted third parties, WebDirect may be a good answer for you if those users don't need heavy-duty access to the database. Keep in mind, because we're using a browser and not a dedicated client like FileMaker Pro, WebDirect doesn't have all the capabilities and all the performance and speed that's contained within FileMaker Pro. Now, of course, everyone has a web browser on their machine, so more than likely almost everyone can run WebDirect. So that gives you a great deal of flexibility. And that's the benefits of WebDirect. You don't have to install anything on a user's machine to give them basic access to FileMaker. But if those users need persistent, in-depth access to FileMaker, they may not necessarily be well served by WebDirect. And you should consider installing FileMaker Pro on those users' machines.
Let's take a look at operation systems. The reason I want to go in and take a look at operation systems is because I'm frequently asked when it comes to FileMaker Pro and FileMaker Pro Advanced, if I have this version of FileMaker, can I run it on the following versions of Windows or Mac? And the reason that is important is that there has a correlation between how good the system is, how secure it is and how smooth it runs. So you have to be aware of, if I have a certain version of a FileMaker, which operation system can I run it on? And the reason I picked the FileMaker Pro 12 is very simple. It is because that is the last version of FileMaker that supports Windows XP Professional and Windows XP Home Edition. Service Pack 3. It has to be Service Pack 3. But FileMaker Pro 12 is the last version that can be run on a Windows XP machine, if there is any out there more, and of course also Vista. Also, when you go into Mac, that is the last version that supports any operation system prior to Mac Lion. Then in regards to FileMaker Pro 13, that is the last version that supports Vista and is also the last version that supports Lion. So when you get to FileMaker Pro 14, that's where we really get a clean slate, where it says no old operation system. I don't even if anybody out there have that, but that's where it says, yeah, but 14 can only run on Windows 7, 8, and 10. That's it. And when it comes to Mac, it says Lion, no. Anything prior to Lion, no. I can run on Maverick, Yosemite, El Capitan, and so on. So just have that in mind, and that's the reason I wanted to go in and look at the operation system. So let's go in and take a look at peer-to-peer. And the reason I bring that up is that when you have a FileMaker Pro or FileMaker Pro Advanced, if you are a small company, sometimes you don't need a server because you can have a FileMaker Pro or FileMaker Pro Advanced work as a server. That means if you have a solution you want to share and you are less than 5 or less than 6 really, because when you, let's say that you have a workstation you want to share it with others, then you can share it with 4 others, 5 including yourself. And these peer-to-peer, if you're running on a newer version of an operation system like 7, like 8, like 10, and you have a newer version of FileMaker, you will have a great environment where you can share it with others. And also, why go out and spend money on a server if you're only a few people that share the data? It has to be said that you can, if needed to, let's say that you're more than 5, then you have to have a server. That server has to have a machine by itself, like a FileMaker Server, a file server acting as a host. Some people say, oh, but I have read I can do it on a workstation also, where I can run a server. Yes, you can, but if you are more than 5, you need that machine to be dedicated only for the FileMaker alone and not having anybody working on it. That's my recommendation. But let's go back again to the FileMaker Pro and FileMaker Pro Advanced as a client, and when you want that to be the host. The reason I want to go through this is that sometimes I get phone calls where people are saying, hey, we can't make it work here. We are only 4 people who are sharing this solution, but they can't log in. They can't see my computer. And then many times I'm asking them, have you turned it on? And say, oh shit, no, I turned it off because I'm going home. That's the reason, because your computer has to be on. Then sometimes they're saying, okay, yeah, well, my computer is on. Yeah, but the program has to be running also. So if you want a workstation to work as a host, that computer has to be on at all times, as long as you or some of the people out there you're sharing with has to get in. Then that computer has to be on and the program has to run. Sometimes I have to emphasize that because people forget it and say, oh yeah, right, I closed it down, I was in the middle of doing something and I felt it was a little slow, so I turned off my FileMaker, and now somebody sits out there in the reception or who is trying to get in and say, hey, I can't see your host more, it's not working. You have to have your computer on and the program has to run. Just keep that in mind. When you take a workstation, a FileMaker Pro or FileMaker Pro Advanced, and run that as a server. But we'll go in and take a look at how this is set up a little bit later. Then let's go in and take a look at the Launch Center. This here is a sample. This is how it looks like from version 14, and now the latest version is version 15. That's how that looked like, and I want to go in and show you a very quick movie how that Launch Center works for you guys that out there have a newer version of FileMaker. If you have an older version, then you don't have the Launch Center. But I want to show you a video of that.
FileMaker Pro, which we're using here, and FileMaker Pro Advanced, FileMaker Go, and FileMaker WebDirect in 15 all include the same way to visually organize all your FileMaker apps in what's called the Launch Center. You can access the Launch Center by going File and Open, and the window that appears here is the Launch Center. By default, it's going to open up in tile view to the My Solutions tab. Now, yours is going to look different than mine because I've been working with various different files. So what you're looking at here are favorite files, which you can interact with by simply clicking the star as you hover over a file, or I can make it not a favorite anymore by clicking the star and making it go away. I also have the ability to make something a favorite through my Manage Favorites dialog, which I can then go in and add things to my favorite, like files that might just be sitting on my desktop, for example. And then those files will show up in my favorites section. The recents are all the files that I've recently been working with, very similar to other apps you might be used to. You can control this under Preferences, and Mac, I go under the Preferences under FileMaker Pro. I can choose how many different recently opened files I can see. And in Windows, you get to the Preferences dialog through the Edit menu. These are all the different files that we have been working with, the ones that are my favorites. I can look at them in tile view or list view, which allows me to see more of them on screen at a time. I also have some navigation all the way down on the bottom here for creating a new solution from a starter solution, or new from an existing file, which means we want to convert something like a text file or a spreadsheet or something into a FileMaker solution. But you'll also notice the Hosts tab. If I click on the Host tab over here, I'm going to see all the different hosts that I've already connected to. So in my case, I have the FileMaker Server 15. You might not see that on yours, because I've already connected to a server that's called FileMaker Server 15. And when I do, I see the different files that are being hosted on that server. So FileMaker Server is a product made by FileMaker that all it really does is just host up your databases so that people can connect to them, much in the same way that I'm showing you here. You'll also notice by hovering over one of the files, I can make it a favorite, which will make it show up in my favorites, even though in the gray text that you see below, it says what server it's being hosted on. Now, if you don't see your server here, you can hit the plus sign and you can enter in the IP address of the FileMaker server, and you can even name it so it shows up as something different on this list. You could specifically say which files you want to see on that server, or just leave the default where you're showing all of them. Same thing here. You're looking at these by default in tile view. You can look at them in list view. And if you have a lot of different files in either one of these views, you can use your filter and it'll narrow down that list to just the ones that match the filter as you type. You can have multiple different servers in your list here as well. As a matter of fact, as professional FileMaker developers, we often have multiple different servers, both for dev or multiple different client servers all showing up there. Now, the Launch Center that you see here in FileMaker Pro is exactly the same one you'll see in FileMaker Pro Advanced. But there's also a Launch Center that ships on FileMaker Go for iPad, FileMaker Go for the phone, and they all look very similar. Also, FileMaker has a deployment option where you can deploy your custom solution in FileMaker WebDirect, and that has a very similar looking Launch Center. So the idea was to unify the platform by allowing users to begin the process of working with their files all in the same way, and that's all through the Launch Center. One of the things, though, that you'll notice in the Launch Center that's kind of interesting is that each one of these solutions has their own icon, and some of them have a custom icon. Now, where does that come from? Well, if you go under the File menu to File Options, you'll see that there's a tab for Icon. You can choose from a series of different icons that ship with the product, so you can apply one of these if you want to. Or if you have your own icon, you can choose the custom option here, or even the custom option here. So let's say, for example, I want to add my own icon. So it's best if you come up with a square icon. In this case, this is a perfectly square icon that I've got. And I insert it, and now I can see what that's going to look like. I can scale to fit or scale to fill if I want. Sometimes it doesn't make much of a difference. So now that icon will ship with this file. So if I upload this to a server, users will see this in my server list of files. But now you see under my recents, I have this custom icon that represents this custom app that I created in FileMaker. It's a neat way to be able to brand your apps and make them easy for users to find when they're looking at a large list of FileMaker files. So the FileMaker Launch Center provides a consistent experience across the entire platform for you to be able to find files that you work with often, favorite them, and even connect to files that are hosted on FileMaker Server.
Okay, so now we took a look at the Launch Center. Let's go in and take a look at the last thing, and that is sharing a FileMaker solution on a client. And the reason I want to go in and look at it in specifics, how do I set it up, how does it work, is I have already now told what need to be on. That means the computer needs to be on and the program has to be started up. But let's see how we set it up. Then in regards to the server, we can always look at that if a server is needed. But let's go in and take a look at a FileMaker running on a FileMaker client and where we are sharing the FileMaker solution.
In this video, I want to take a quick moment and talk about sharing a FileMaker solution between your desktop computer or laptop and other users or other devices such as an iPad or iPhone or maybe another office worker who has their own laptop. Now, to get things rolling here, I'm going to need a FileMaker solution on my local computer, and the one I'm going to use is FM Starting Point, which is a free starter solution that is available online. When people start off using a FileMaker solution, they typically install it on their local device, like an iPad or laptop computer. Of course, the great benefit and the true power of the FileMaker platform is collaborative sharing between yourself and the rest of your team. Whether your team is in the office or out across the internet, FileMaker is exceptionally good at sharing a solution with all these users simultaneously. Now, a local file that runs on your laptop or iPad makes for very fast performance on your device. Of course, the downside to this is that sharing a local database with other users or other devices can be a bit of a challenge to set up if you've never done it before. But once you've seen it done and you understand the processes, it's a snap. So let me walk you through this. If you have a local file on your desktop or laptop computer, you can share that file on a local area network by going up under File, down to Sharing, over to Share with FileMaker Clients, and bring up the FileMaker Network Settings dialog. Right here, you're going to turn on the network sharing. Now, in 99% of the cases, people are going to have a dynamic IP address. Now, this is a little bit of technical speak here, but every device on the internet has an internet address. And every time you restart your device, a device with a dynamic address will have a new address. So every time I restart this computer here, this address here will change. And that's what makes web servers and FileMaker servers special, is that every time you restart those systems on the internet, their addresses stay the same. They have what is called a static IP address. But in this case, I have a laptop computer, and I have whatever address my machine got for me when it logged on automatically to the internet. Now, I have my FileMaker solution right here. It's FM Starting Point. I'm going to turn on access for all users right here. I'm going to select OK. And now this FileMaker solution is sharing itself on my local area network. So let me go and show you. I have my iPad right here. I'm going to select FileMaker Go right here. It's going to fire up. I can see that I have several options here. I have Recent, Device, and Hosts. And I can press the Host button, and automatically FileMaker Go scans my local area network and sees my server. I can click on my laptop right here and then select FM Starting Point that's being hosted. So as you can see, my iPad is actually accessing my hosted copy of FM Starting Point. The copy of FM Starting Point does not live on the iPad. It's simply accessing it temporarily across the network to the laptop computer. So I can go over here to my contacts database, and I can put in Tom right here, and I can jump back. As you can see, there's no update yet on the screen, but if I click out right here, that causes FileMaker to save the change. The screen over here instantly updates. As you can see, that's a live link between these two files. Now this is what FileMaker calls peer-to-peer sharing. We're not using FileMaker Server, we're simply using FileMaker Pro to share with other peers. Now these peers are either other copies of FileMaker Pro that are in the office running on a Mac or Windows computer, or they're copies of FileMaker Go that are running on an iPhone or iPad on the same network. Now if I was really clever, I could set up my laptop or desktop computer with a static address. And then maybe I could access this database out on the internet from my iPad. But as it stands right now, this iPad access is limited to only while I'm in the office, which means that if I leave and go to Starbucks, for example, and get a coffee, I'll be outside my company's network, and I'll no longer be able to access or see my hosted FileMaker solution. Because of the inherent limitations of peer-to-peer sharing with FileMaker Pro, my team at RC Consulting generally doesn't recommend the use of peer-to-peer sharing with your database unless you need to put together a quick, ad hoc network on a temporary basis. We recommend that users of FileMaker who share their databases simply just move up to FileMaker Server. Moving up to FileMaker Server eliminates a lot of headaches and hassles and provides a great deal of robust support, reliability, encryption, automatic backup protection, and now with Server 14, support for accessing your databases with Android devices. All the things that you would expect from a robust, professional server product. So here you can see that we've dived into FileMaker Server, and this is the administrative console. On the left-hand side of the screen, I have various options I can select, and then that allows me to look at the databases that I have running on this FileMaker Server, or the users that are connected to this FileMaker Server. To access your database anywhere on the internet, all you need to do is take your FileMaker database and host it on a properly configured FileMaker Server. And of course, FileMaker Server would have a static IP address. Part of a proper server setup would also be to ensure that that server has additional hard drives for robust quality backups. As you can see by our schedule screen here, we run a number of backup copies around the clock, both on our solid state drives and also on our external backups, which we can run via Dropbox. The whole point is that if you want to access your database in a shared collaborative environment, you need to set it up using a copy of FileMaker Server. Now you do have a couple options in how you leverage FileMaker Server. You can purchase a copy of FileMaker Server yourself and run your own server. If you have mission-critical databases that need to be accessed by your in-office staff, it may be best that you actually have your own FileMaker Server running on a dedicated computer that's located within your office. Now this machine could still be configured with a static IP address that would allow remote users to access a hosted database. An alternative would be to rent space from a FileMaker hosting service where you can actually park your FileMaker solution on an existing FileMaker server that's located up at a data center. Now some users actually have their own FileMaker servers and they actually co-locate or put those servers not in their local office but in a data center as well. Installing your FileMaker server at a data center is going to provide you with redundant electrical power and redundant internet connections, which could come in handy in a case of a power outage or other internet outages. Before I let you go, I want to show you real quick how you can take a local FileMaker solution running on a Mac or Windows computer and post it up to a FileMaker server. Now I already have a FileMaker server that we're running, but say for the sake of argument that I have a local solution right here that I want to share with the rest of my team. Well, how do I quickly and easily get that put up on FileMaker Server? I can upload that FileMaker solution by going up to the menu bar at the top and pressing the Share icon, and then selecting Upload to FileMaker Server. You'll need to select your FileMaker server from an available list of FileMaker servers. Of course, if your FileMaker server was set up, you would have already put its IP address in here. You have to input your name and password, and then proceed with the process of installing. FileMaker Pro can talk to FileMaker Server automatically, upload a FileMaker solution, and have it hosted in just a few moments. This is really a quick and easy way of getting your FileMaker solution posted up to a FileMaker server. So to wrap things up, As you can see, the FileMaker platform excels at collaborating with groups of users who want to share information, whether those users are running on Macs or on Windows computers, whether they're on desktops or laptops, or whether they're on iPhones or iPads, or whether they're even using the new WebDirect technology that is accessed from the FileMaker server itself. The FileMaker platform provides a rich collaborative environment that is driven by FileMaker Server. FileMaker Pro is the software you're going to use to access the database on your desktop or laptop computer. It's also the software that allows you to customize and make changes to that database. So FileMaker Pro is a critical piece as well. FileMaker Go is the dedicated software designed specifically for the iPhone or iPad. So FileMaker Server for hosting solutions in your office or out on the internet, FileMaker Pro for your desktop or laptop computers, and FileMaker Go for your iPhone and iPad. And finally, as a third option, once your database is actually hosted with FileMaker Server, you do have the option for accessing the database with FileMaker's WebDirect technology. Hopefully, this gives you an idea of how to get going with FileMaker and what direction to go when you're ready to collaborate with your team, whether on desktop, laptops, iPhones, or iPads.
That's it. Thank you for watching.